Welcome back to the Scout Report on TF3, the show where we take a deeper look at some of the biggest transfer rumours of the week and look at whether they could, and maybe should, happen. Joining me this week is freelance journalist Nick Morales. Nick, welcome to the Front Three.
Adam, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk William Carvalho with you, Nick. Again, being linked to a move to the Premier League. It's the transfer rumour that never dies. Not only Manchester City reportedly interested, but also Liverpool and Arsenal as well. Just why is the Portuguese midfielder attracting so much interest?
Well, if you look at William Carvalho, it's a position that a lot of teams could do with, in a sense. He's an excellent defensive midfielder that has his positional duties down to a T, and he's someone that can really add a steal to a midfield. He's had an excellent, consistent number of interceptions for a number of years now, and if you consider Liga NOS to be one of those leagues where someone can tend to be a flat track bully, he continued that excellent performance in the Euros this summer. And although someone like Cristiano Ronaldo and Ricardo Quaresma take all the credit for the attacking fluency in the summer, someone like William Carvalho as well as Pepe and other midfielders really were a part of their defensive solidity that allowed them to get into the latter stages of the competition. So from that perspective, he's an excellent player. He also has an excellent range of passing, and obviously that's something that's essential to a Pep Guardiola side as well as really any side.
Specifically on Manchester City, though, how would you see him fitting in at the Etihad Stadium and in Pep Guardiola's system?
In terms of the amount of deeper midfielders that Manchester City have, it's not that many. Okay, Gundogan has recently suffered a huge knee injury, which he has in the past, so that could be a consistent problem. Yaya Toure is only getting older. Fabian Delph hasn't lived up to expectation, and neither has Fernando. And the only other midfielder you can really think of is Aleix Garcia, who's a youth player who's perhaps maybe 1-2 years away from being a consistent first-team starter. So they definitely need more deeper-lying midfielders that can combat sort of in the Premier League. And just to talk a little bit more about how he can fit into Pep Guardiola's system, if you look at who he used in defensive midfield when he was at Barcelona, perhaps a league that's a little bit more similar to the Premier League in terms of the intensity and how teams play, he used Sergio Busquets as that defensive pivot, and that's someone that we so closely associate with his style because he was able to be positionally so astute that Barcelona were able to keep possession for massive amounts of the game. At Bayern Munich, he inherited a treble-winning squad, and he got his possession numbers through that because they were fantastic. And he used Xabi Alonso as sort of an offensive pivot, and he had some great passing range through him, but he didn't really need that defensive midfielder to really shore up. But in the Premier League, obviously, you need someone that's going to put in some tackles and perhaps add some steel to your midfield, as well as being positionally astute. And William Carvalho is a perfect player for that. And I'll bring up Pep Guardiola's mentor, one of his mentors, Marcelo Bielsa, used Gary Medel in a similar fashion, and sort of Pep Guardiola used Javi Martinez in a similar way. He moved Javi Martinez from central midfield to a central defensive area when he was at Bayern Munich, and that's because dribbling, like any other footballing talent, is one of those things where some players have it. And so William Carvalho, for a number of years now, has had those interception rate, and it stays consistent. It's very high among Europe's best. And so when you have a player like that, and when you have a system like the one Guardiola uses, where there are so many players high up the field and you have few people defending, then you need a player sort of in that back line that's able to step into those passing lanes and make a number of attacking players unavailable just through their positioning. And William Carvalho has shown that he's that type of player, and that's really the role that I see him filling. Maybe not as a central defender, but certainly someone that could step into those passing lanes and make themselves a nuisance because of the way that Pep Guardiola likes to play.
It's an interesting one. I mean, do you think a player like Carvalho in that deeper midfield role is the priority for Pep Guardiola next season? We've potentially seen him have some teething problems in his first season in the Premier League. Question marks over some of the players there, whether they can fulfill the roles that he wants them to on the pitch. Should he be concentrating on other areas, prioritising them first?
Well, it's an interesting one because a lot of people point out fullback as one of those positions where people say, maybe Manchester City have some deficiencies. And I would certainly agree. The majority of our fullbacks are over the age of 32, which is absolutely insane. If you're looking to have a pressing system with a bunch of 34-year-olds, you're kind of shit out of luck there. But it's interesting because I don't think he's going to use the same system as perhaps an Antonio Conte or a Mauricio Pochettino, in the sense that he'll be actually using fullbacks. He might just use attacking players like Leroy Sané and Sterling there permanently, and then choose to only really buy central defenders and perhaps central defensive midfielders like Carvalho in these positions. And maybe, that is really the only position that he does need to fill. So I really do think that he'd be an excellent addition to the team.
What about Arsenal then, Nick? Because they have also been linked with a move for Carvalho. And I mean, it just makes sense. They're lacking that steel in midfield, which Carvalho could bring. And they've been long rumoured to be interested in the Portuguese midfielder.
Certainly, and it's actually something that Arsenal made a bid a few years ago, and they had it. They had it rejected because Sporting. One of the issues and one of the reasons that this player hasn't moved on, and we look, this player has been a prospect for a number of years now. He's been fantastic since he was very young. He was I believe, under 21s, one of the best players of the tournament at the under 21 Euros, and so Arsenal put in a bid for about 30 million, which is pretty good for a defensive midfielder, but Sporting set their price at around 50 million, which is crazy considering N'Golo Kante, who wasn't even popular at the time, just went for 30 million. But yeah, so it's certainly one of those things where people draw allusions to Patrick Vieira in that sense. But any club can really benefit from a defensive midfielder, and William Carvalho is no exception. One thing I will say as well is that since he has been a prospect for a number of years now, he's been consistent with his performances, and he's had a massive leg break in between there, and he's been good before and he's been good after. So it really only adds to his credit.
Well, there you have it. William Carvalho, scout reported. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Should Carvalho come to the Premier League? Should he go to City, Arsenal, Liverpool? Let us know what you think in the comments below. For now, though, Nick, thank you so much for joining us on TF3. Where can the viewers find more of you?
They can find me on Twitter at Nico, Nico_O Morales.